The dog had never once raised his voice in the house, not in 4 years. That made the silence that followed even harder to explain. They thought their German Shepherd had turned on their son. They were completely wrong. Marcus and Talia Drummond had a system. Marcus handled morning drop-off for their older daughter. Talia worked remotely from the dining room table 3 days a week. Their son Jonah, 22 months, had the run of the living room between 9 and noon while Talia finished her calls. The German Shepherd, a 4-year-old named Sable, had shared that space without incident since Jonah first learned to pull himself upright on the coffee table. He was not a nervous dog. He was not an aggressive dog. He was the kind of dog that people described as serious, alert without being anxious, present without demanding anything. He slept at the foot of their bed. He waited at the door. He had been around Jonah since the boy came home from the hospital, and had never once pushed, nipped, circled, or done anything that required more than a raised eyebrow, which was why Tuesday morning made no sense. Jonah had been fussy since waking. Not sick fussy, just the restless, particular unhappiness of a toddler who woke 20 minutes too early and could not get comfortable with the morning. Talia had given him crackers, changed him, set him in front of his stacking rings, and stepped into the kitchen to start the coffee. She came back 2 minutes later. Sable was on the floor in front of Jonah, not lying down. Standing, his broad head was lowered to the boy's eye level, muzzle 6 inches from Jonah's face. Jonah, startled, let out a cry that escalated immediately. Sable did not move. His nose was pressed toward the boy's cheek, then to his mouth, deliberate, unhurried. Jonah screamed harder. Talia crossed the room and said his name once. Sable pulled back 2 inches and looked at her, then turned his head back toward Jonah. She called Marcus at work. He said what she was already thinking. That is a behavior change. That is not what Sable does. She described it again. The lowered head, the pressing toward the child's face, the refusal to disengage when called. Marcus said, "Can you get him out of the room?" She crated Sable in the laundry room. Jonah calmed within minutes. She noted that it felt like proof. If you stay for stories about what animals know before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you never miss the next one. Marcus came home at lunch. He watched Sable in the crate. Calm, settled, no residual agitation. They let him out. He walked directly to the living room, found Jonah on the playmat, and moved toward the boy's face with the same quiet, focused motion as that morning. Marcus caught his collar and held him back. Sable did not resist. He just held his position, nose toward the child, for 3 full seconds, and then sat. That night, Talia looked up German Shepherd behavior changes with toddlers. She read about resource guarding. She read about latent prey drive triggered by high-pitched sound. She read about dogs that appeared calm for years before incidents. She was a project manager for a healthcare software company. She was methodical. She was thorough. Every search confirmed what her instincts were already organizing into a decision. The behavior was escalating. The dog was fixating on the child. They had to act. They called Sable's trainer the following morning. She came the afternoon of the next day. She watched a replay Talia had captured on her phone. She showed her the behavior in under 4 minutes. The trainer watched for a long time. She said, "Can I ask you something? Has Jonah been sick recently?" Jonah had been sick the previous week, a low-grade respiratory thing that moved through in 3 days. He was eating, moving, seemed fine. The trainer said, "I want you to take him to the pediatrician before we make any decisions about the dog." They went that afternoon, more to satisfy the trainer than out of genuine concern. Jonah seemed well. At the clinic, Dr. Renata Solberg, 14 years in general pediatrics, listened to his chest, checked his oxygen saturation, pressed on his abdomen. She ordered a blood panel. Standard post-illness workup, she said. They waited 40 minutes. The call came while they were still in the parking lot. Jonah's white cell count was elevated significantly. His inflammatory markers were running high. He was not recovering from the respiratory virus the way they thought he was. Something was still active in his system. Dr. Solberg wanted him in the hospital within the hour for imaging. The diagnosis came back the following morning. Jonah had developed a pulmonary abscess, a pocket of infection in his lung, from a secondary bacterial infection that had taken hold while the family believed he was already well. It had been building silently for days. It had no clear external symptom. His appetite was mostly intact. He was mobile. He was now running a high fever. There was no visible sign that anything was wrong except the way he cried, the way the crying had a different quality, the kind of crying that came from somewhere deeper. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Dr. Solberg told him something in the hallway outside Jonah's room on the second day. She said, "I want to ask you about the dog." They told her what had happened. She was quiet for a moment. She said, "Dogs can detect infection through expelled breath. Bacteria produce volatile compounds that shift the chemical signature of exhaled air. A dog with a developed scent profile for a child he lives with would notice a deviation that no human would register." She looked at them both. What he was doing was olfactory assessment. He was trying to read the breath. Every time he pressed his nose toward Jonah's face. Not aggression, detection. Every time they removed him. Not management, interruption. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who could not tell you what they knew. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Jonah was hospitalized for 11 days. He recovered fully. Sable came home from his trainer's facility on a Thursday, 8 days after the diagnosis. Talia opened the front door and did not say anything. Sable walked in, found Jonah sitting on the living room floor and crossed to him slowly. He lowered his head. He pressed his nose very gently toward the boy's cheek and held it there for 2 seconds. Then he exhaled and lay down beside him. Jonah reached out and put one hand on the dog's back. Sable closed his eyes. The next story is about a family who filmed something at 2 a.m. that no one in that house was meant to see. And what the footage showed changed every decision they thought they had already made.